We should never get tired of dialogue to resolve issues. After some back and forth movement, hope is rising over a permanent resolution of the strike embarked upon by the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, Judicial. And after a harmonization meeting with the federal government's delegation at the presidential villa in Abuja, the Nigerian Governors Forum now says all parties have reached an agreement on the way forward. And chairman of the forum, who is also the governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, has assured that issues surrounding implementation of financial autonomy for the judiciary and the legislature at the state level will be completed this month. And this will be as soon as the final document is ready. Gentlemen, that's how we begin our conversation this evening. I'd like to begin with you, Ali Adeoye. You know, what your perceptions are on this milestone that the Judicial issue has reached as of now?
Yeah, I think, first of all, we need to commend Judicial for its consistency, for its perseverance. It shows that when you believe in a cause, don't give up. And we are glad that they were able to explore the basic principles of democracy, which is the right to protest. And we have seen the gain. They didn't protest in a very violent manner. They protested in a very civilized manner. And they were consistent since April 6. You know, despite all the threats, the dangling of carrots, they kept on. And I think the Nigerian people really supported them. Because you cannot have democracy where there's no rule of law. And you cannot have rule of law where there's no independence of the judiciary. So I think what has happened is a plus for us. You know, we should commend both sides, and also for the government to agree to sign a memorandum of understanding with Judicial. And we have been told that they are going to be, the funds from FAC will be transferred to the accounts of the NGC from April. So we are still going to have a kind of backlog.
From June?
From April.
Okay.
Yes. But they are going to implement from May, according to the governor of Ekiti State. But it's not the end to the campaign.
Indeed.
Because governments in the past, had signed MOU. We remember what happened with MOU with ASU. And the problem is enforcement, keeping, to their words. But I hope in this case, they realize the importance of this MOU and the impact on justice and, the rule of law. So I believe the governors will keep to their words. So we are hoping that we are in May already, that at the end of the day, there's going to be some level of judicial autonomy, which is necessary for democracy to thrive.
All right. Well, I will come back to take you up on that parting word that you just dropped now about some level of judicial autonomy and how satisfactory that will be, whether to go the long haul in demanding for full implementation of financial autonomy to the letter, or if they just take what has been dangled at the moment. But Adekunle, how do you like to begin on this note? And by the way, PASAN and Judicial have said the strike continues until they see an enforcement or at least something beyond what has been signed to ensure that indeed the governors will keep to their word. So what do you make of this development so far?
I believe strongly that unless our institutions are allowed to work, nobody will reap the benefits of democracy. I'm saying true democracy. What we currently operate, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's not true democracy. The state governors, maybe they need to do a rethink that they should allow Nigeria to function. When you compare the state and the federal, you see more of democracy working at the federal level. We are not talking about any government now. We are talking about what we are used to in Nigeria. So the state governors want to control the state judiciary totally. They want to control the state legislature totally. They also want to control the local government totally. So most of the state governors in Nigeria run affairs as if the states are their personal, estates. You understand my point? So now, when we have unions, professional bodies standing up to look our almighty governors in the face. Oh, beautiful. It goes beyond having a president who can sign executive order. No, we need to walk the talk. Since we don't have, somebody that can enforce this, we have, Judicial and others standing up that no, I don't expect these bodies to back down. No. They must make sure. When you look at all the documents that we have seen, all the proposals from the governors, you will see that the governors are totally unwilling to let go. They still want to, control. What are we talking about? It's about funding. It is about the autonomy. He who pays the piper, dictates the people. The constitution says do their funding directly from the federation account. But the governors don't want that. Now they are proposing state account and whatever. At the end of the day, when you read down, they now say funds management law. And you look down again, you realize that what they want to create the impression that they have let go, they eventually takes it back through the back door. So the governors don't actually want to let that go. But this body should continue to fight this state government until we have autonomy. If there's no autonomy at the state level in terms of judiciary, if there's no autonomy for legislation at the state level, then where is the democracy? There is no autonomy for local governments. Then where is democracy? There's no democracy. The governors just run the show.
All right, let's hear from BKO now. BKO is joining us live from Abuja. Good evening to you. I hope you're keeping safe. On this discussion of the agreement finally reached with the intervention of the federal government, talking about this lingering Judicial strike. So how convinced are you that the issue of financial autonomy for the legislature and the judiciary at the state level has finally been resolved?
Well, I think that the taste of the pudding is in the eating. What we've been told is that the strike will be called off as soon as implementation begins. Now we want to see what happens when implementation begins. What are the elements that we will see that will show to us that the battle that was waged by the judiciary workers on one side and the parliamentary workers on the other has actually yielded dividends? We've been told also that the Presidential Implementation Committee shall give a bi-weekly appraisal of the success of the autonomy for the judiciary as well as the legislature, because significantly the federal government set up a committee to implement the autonomy for the judiciary and the legislature, which means that following up on the president's decision to come up with Executive Order 10, the federal government is bent on having this autonomy for both tiers of government. And now, for the first time, we are going to have a situation in which all the three tiers of government will submit their budget at the end of every budget cycle to the House of Assembly. So the heads of the judiciary in the respective states would submit their budgets. They will work out their budget on their own. They'll decide what they want to spend their money on in the course of the year, and within the limits of the resources available, all the three tiers of governments and the state would agree, and each of them will send their budget to the House of Assembly. This had not always been the case. The governors determined how much money should go to the judiciary, what capital projects should happen in the judiciary, and all that. So we are seeing some form of progress made along that line, and I'm particularly impressed at the role played by Senator Enang and the Minister of Labour, because Senator Enang said, we struggled for this thing for 25 years. The autonomy was there. It was said not to be clear and was clarified by the courts, but it was not obeyed by our brothers. The governors lost in courts. They didn't have the courage to appeal. They pushed JUSUM to go on strike. Now JUSUM has gone on strike, and I have every reason to believe that they are not gone on strike in vain, because they have all agreed now that that there should be autonomy. But it has to be monitored. The implementation has to be monitored, and I'm happy that there is a presidential implementation committee that is now saddled with the task of giving bi-weekly appraisal of the matter of autonomy for judiciary and the legislature. So at that level, if state governors are blocking the successful implementation through the joint committee that has been set up, of course at that level the complaints can be raised and something could be done about it. So the Labour Minister received suggestions from all parties. Those suggestions were distilled, and at the end of the day, all parties agreed that the framework for the implementation was good. So all that needs to be done now is for the judiciary workers to remain vigilant and ensure that governors are not allowed to hijack this process as they have done with local governments, where they have what you call a joint account committee. So we are waiting to see whether that will happen.
Indeed, and listening to everyone's take on this subject, Wale, one key issue is resonating, and that's the issue of implementation. And if I also can borrow relief from what BK has said to the need for JUSUM and every other striking body, of course, specifically PASAN now, to remain vigilant. The battle, there's still ground to cover in declaring victory over this lingering issue.
There's no doubt that this is a very popular struggle.
Because we've come to the critical stage now of implementation. And
a lot of Nigerians are interested because it has to do with access to justice. And we are talking about even, it will improve the quality of litigation. It will give the poor people access to justice, because when justices are not well paid, the temptation is always there. When their salaries are not paid, if anybody offers money, they can take. So I believe the Nigerian Bar Association and other stakeholders, JUSUM and the civil society, we all need to monitor the implementation, because it's all in our interest. For any country that lay claim to democracy, one of the cardinal principles is separation of powers. And you cannot have separation of powers where the judiciary is under the armpit of the governors. It means they can manipulate the justice system. It means they can dispense justice according to their own whims and caprices. It means that the poor people who are vulnerable, will not have access to justice. You know how many people that are lying, in a prison just because they don't have access to justice. So when the judiciary is independent, I think it will strengthen the democratic process. And that's why everybody is interested. It's one of the most popular struggles that we have ever seen in the past, because it affects almost every aspect of the country. But at the same time, it does not automatically guarantee, sustainable democracy, because there are still other contradictions associated with the judiciary. The judiciary itself needs to purge itself of corruption. It needs to self-regulate. It needs to deal with issues of frivolous adjournments. It needs to deal with issue of training and retraining of its members. Because having judicial autonomy, having you can manage your resources, does not automatically mean that it will give us justice. There are still other things that we need to do. But I think it's a step forward, and I believe that we should all be on the guard to ensure that the governors keep to their words, and also in terms of practical implementation, that everything is done to ensure that we get what we want at the end of the day.
All right. Well, Adekunle, let me take you back on your initial point now about the steps in implementation of this agreement between stakeholders on this issue. There's a 45-day requirement that we'll begin to read, so to speak, as from next week on this issue. But like you said, there are also some stages now before we can now say that, yes, indeed, implementation has taken off. But, what are your considerations? What are your concerns? How smooth sailing do you think this procedure will be?
I don't think it is going to be easy. Because if it is an easy thing, it's not easy to let go when you're used to certain privileges that ordinarily shouldn't come to you. Letting go, it's not going to be easy. The governors, over the years, especially since 1999, they're like something else in our country. I'm not trying to campaign against governors, but that's the way they are in Nigeria. So now, in this case, strike action has been going on, I think, for close to 2 months now. And you see that the governors, you see, they still want to hold on one way or the other. So, just like Jide said the other time, the striking bodies, we need to be on their guard. Because they are playing in a game. When you are playing with people who are better, who are smarter, you need to be on your guard. This is a popular struggle, as Wale is saying. It is a popular struggle because when you free democracy from the armpit of governors, partisan interests, either government or private, it's everybody that wins. Because it is at the soul of what they call separation of power, the rule of law. Without it, so all of us at this time, there will be a lot. The Judicial and parliamentary workers, they said they should start their original demand to start implementation from October last year. Who is afraid of that? The governors. And they know what that will mean to them. Now, when you look at all the proposals the governors are bringing forward, believe me, at the end of the day, I'm afraid that this strike may not actually achieve what it's seeking to achieve, unless Judicial and others are on their guard. When you look at it, the state governors, let's create an account, then each state commissioner of finance, then you do the social law, then they are defining, when you read their proposal, they are defining what is a capital project, they are defining what is no. The Constitution says give this money to the head, directly from the federation account, through the NJC, to the head of judiciary in every state. You understand my point? What is so difficult in that? We all should be Democrats because we believe we are running democracy. Everything should be done to win this arm of government, I mean the judiciary, from partisan interests, either government or private. If judiciary is, free, it will help. Don't you see what happens at the federal level? Look at the National Assembly. They can call the president to order unless they want to gag themselves. Reason, they don't need to go and beg any president to get their money. You understand my point? Look at the judiciary. The president can do this, the judiciary can nullify it. But at the lower level, do you have much of that? You see, the governor wants, who is the speaker, he wants to control at the state, House of Assembly, who becomes chairman of every local government. The governor wants to. We should allow our institutions to work, because by doing so, we will be doing ourselves, all of us, we will be doing ourselves a lot of good. If we are not doing it, why are we running democracy?
Let me also get BKO's analysis now. Now that this issue, we've reached some form of progress, and like you all have stressed now, vigilance is the next key step now for the striking workers. But talking about the all-round dream of an independent judiciary, now all eyes, when this takes off, hopefully soon, all eyes will be on the judiciary. But as has also been established here on this table, there is the need for the judiciary to purge itself literally from all the perception of corruption from within. And BKO, so what do you think is the next step now? Now that the judiciary will be in control, the legislature will be in control of how it spends money, how monies come in, what for you is the next step now to make sure that indeed access to justice will be the order of the day?
Yes, I expect that we would achieve some level of progress in our desire to have the judiciary of our dreams. The judiciary that we envisage is one that is incorruptible, one that does not feel beholden to the executive. But it's impossible to not be beholden to the executive when you have to approach the executive to buy you cars, when you have to beg the executive to let you attend trainings. I've talked about a governor from the North Central who was approached about the need for the judiciary staff to go for training, and he said, is that really necessary? If they were managing their funds by themselves, there would have been no need for anyone to go to the governor to ask for his permission, to ask for his approval, for them to go for a course. Because if you want to really develop capacity in the judiciary, they also need to be trained and retrained. So I believe that such things will be dealt with now much better with the success that has now been recorded. So this is, I believe that progress has been made. The federal government is committed. The president didn't just come up with executive order 10. He felt that he needed to do it. He's done it, and he set up an implementation committee for autonomy for the judiciary and the legislature. And there is a committee to monitor implementation and report every 2 weeks. So let's be patient. Let's wait to see what happens, because implementation, the workers, they are saying, look, let's wait to see implementation begin. And hopefully by May 24, the funds from the federation account will have hit the account of states. So the funds will be distributed based on FAQ templates. That is already part of the agreement, that the funds will be allocated based on FAQ templates. So that in itself will not make it easy for states or state governors to make use of the funds meant for the judiciary the way they will have wanted, because there is a federal committee that is going to monitor implementation and report back every 2 weeks. You know, they say eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. So liberty is not easy. You have to earn it, and when you earn it, you must guide it jealously. So it's up to the judiciary workers, as well as the Presidential Implementation Committee, to ensure that the things that pushed, the conditions that pushed JUSUM to embark on this paralyzing strike, very long strike, will not happen again.
All right, we'll rest our discussion on the JUSUM strike matter now, and all the recent developments will continue to monitor also from our end happenings regarding the issue. In the meantime, we'll take a break and return with the status of Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau. Stay with us on Journalist Hangout. You're watching Journalist Hangout on TVC News. It's good to have you join us again. Now to a second issue for discussion today. Is he alive or not? Is a raging controversy regarding the status of the Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau, and for a man who has been declared dead on many occasions, and other news about his death will certainly be taken with caution. Mr. Shekau is reported to have shot himself in a bid to avoid being captured by members of the rival terrorist group, the Islamic State West Africa Province, ISWAP, after heavy gun duel in Sambisa Forest. And Shekau's state is currently unknown, but he is believed to have been badly injured. Spokesman of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier General Mohammed Yerima, says the military is investigating the report. Wale Adeoye, what do you make of this twist?
I think Shekau is a cat with more than 9 lives. This is not the first time we've had rumors about his death. I think in 2010, he was said to have been shot and detained by his gang. Since Yusuf Mohammed was killed in 2009, there has been rivalry on who will succeed him, which had led to about 3 factions. And Shekau claimed to be the successor of Mohammed Yusuf. There are other people that have been fighting, contending that space with him. People like Mama No, who is a Cameroonian. People like Adam Kamba, who was trained in Nigeria. People like Abiba Bama, and many other people like that. And I think that problem has always been there. And at the international level, ISWAP appears to be associating with one faction, you know, ISIS, at the expense of the other, and ISIS too. So this is the first time we are having what seems to be similar, what seems to be real, that it is most likely that he may have been killed by his own people. Because had he been in the past, he will come out and say, look, in 24 hours, you will see the video claiming that, I'm still alive and all that. So what has happened is not unexpected. When you have armed groups that are in perpetual conflict with themselves, the usual consequence is that one will eliminate the other. Because it's a terror gang that does not believe in democracy, that does not believe in the rule of law, that that runs a terror machine. So it is expected that violence, is the means of that they employ when they are talking about judgment. And Shekau himself has proved to be a very vicious leader. He ran an iron fist garrison command. Rebellion against him usually met with an instant death sentence. So I believe this has led to a lot of resistance, a kind of resentment in his camp. So it is most likely that he may have been killed. But we still need to be cautious. And then in terms of the implication, I think it is difficult to predict. It might weaken Boko Haram. it might at the same time re-energize the organization, because depending on who emerges, to be his successor. So we have to watch with our two eyes open, and maybe in the next few days, the real picture will begin to emerge.
All right. So let me get to BKO in Abuja before I come back to the studio for more reactions on whether indeed Abubakar Shekau is dead. BKO, what are you reading from your end?
Kind of inclined to believe that Abubakar Shekau is dead, because yes, in the past he was said to have been killed, but at that time those stories came from the Nigerian army, and they released pictures of someone, people similar to him. But this is a completely different scenario. ISWAP men had been fighting Shekau's men for some time. Occasionally, their paths will cross and they will take on Shekau's men. There was a time that Shekau's men abducted wives of some of the ISWAP members, and they got angry and launched a counterattack to free those women. There had been occasions when Shekau's men attacked residents of some communities, and ISWAP men came to the scene and chased them away. Since August 2016, when ISIS that Shekau had pledged loyalty to the decision to replace him with Abu Musab al-Banawi, the son of the late founder of the group. Shekau had made up his mind that he would not pledge allegiance to the leader of that group, and that he preferred to go it alone. But they had been looking for a way to unite the groups and inherit Shekau's fighters. ISWAP had done a good job of recruiting fighters in spite of the difficulties involved. Of course, they've been exploiting poverty in that general area to recruit men and to conscript others. But they had always wanted to take Shekau out of the picture and inherit Sambisa Forest. Their area of influence had shrunk in the last few months, beginning with their expulsion from the islands of Lake Chad in Chad. So they want to go to the Sambisa Forest, but that is an area that Shekau controlled. So they launched an attack, fought his men for more than 2 days, and after defeating his men, they decided to then go to where he was hiding. Shekau's biggest undoing was his decision to kill his own army chief by the name Abu Fatima. A lot of the people who used to go to war with Abu Fatima had never seen Shekau in their lives. So their loyalty was to Abu Fatima. So but the moment he took Abu Fatima out of the way, those guys got very angry, and he could not be sure of their loyalty. And coupled with the successes that ISWAP had recorded in the last few weeks, and some of the weapons that they had stolen from the Nigerian army, they felt confident to take the battle to Shekau. And they attacked him from different points, came in through the Tiboku Triangle, Krenoa, and some of them coming all the way from Kangarwa. So they had about 28 gun trucks. And when you face Shekau with 28 gun trucks, he barely has more than 7 gun trucks. When you face him with 28 gun trucks, the outcome is very predictable. I believe that one of the things that energized the group to do what they have done is the return of Abu Musab al-Banawi. He had been removed as leader of the group and his younger brothers killed. Remember, Mama Noor was married Abu Musab al-Banawi's mom.
Yeah.
He actually married Muhammad Yusuf's widow. But Mama Noor was sentenced to death and executed by ISWAP because it was suspected that he was trying to make peace with Nigeria. So, and Abu Musab al-Banawi too had to flee after he was demoted. But his boys had become stronger within the group, and they brought him and replaced Abu Umar with him. They removed their leader Abu Umar, and he returned to power. So his return to power, he must have some agenda of his own. He is someone who doesn't like the killing of civilians. If you read his reason for breaking out with Shekau, he said clearly that it made no sense to kill civilians, that it's better to kill soldiers and policemen and civil defense than kill innocent civilians. You know, so he is interested in Sambisa, because Sambisa is a big kind of strategic fortress, and of course in Sambisa it will be a lot more difficult to pinpoint their locations and kill them. Of course, it's a very vast area, so they can always move around. So in a way, they found Sambisa critical, and they decided to take Shekau out of the picture to inherit Sambisa. No one has seen his corpses, but there are claims that he killed himself with the suicide vest. Right. No one is sure, but there has never been a time when 90% of stories coming from that area, from some of the most reliable sources that we have had to use over the years, indicated that Shekau is dead. So I want to believe that Shekau is gone, and Abu Musab al-Banawi, who has now returned to power, has taken over control of Sambisa forest.
All right. Well, the discussion continues. So, Adekunle, what do you make of this? Boko Haram out, ISWAP in, looking at the control of the Sambisa forest. But what does this mean for the Nigerian army's continued fight against insurgency in the Northeast?
It doesn't mean much, because the army will need to sustain the onslaught on insurgents. If you want to sing the victory song that, oh, Shekau is dead, you know how many times he has died? Something like 6 to 7 times. That either he's fatally wounded or he's dead or whatever. But this time around, let's wait and believe. Let's continue to believe the story until we don't see something of a video, you know. But now, what it means, it's good that Boko Haram is now being technically degraded. But there is no good news there. ISWAP that may take advantage of that is even more formidable. It has more international network to unleash terror on any country, any society, even than Boko Haram. So what it means is that we should still keep the heat on these, you know, criminals. Because if you think we should just sing the victory song now, oh, we don't I don't think it's the right thing to do. So it's good news a little, but it may also mean bad news if, we don't reappraise, the strategy, because ISWAP is more deadly than Boko Haram. They have more members now. Don't forget, if you follow the analysis Jide made, there were disagreements within the ranks of Boko Haram. And it got to a point that some of the commanders, needed to defect, like Nigerian politicians, either moving from APC to PDP, PD to... So they moved, some of them moved from, Boko Haram to ISWAP. And at the end of the day, they were the ones that formed the bulk of, the problems that we were told, have overwhelmed Shekau now. So now, those ones are not dead. They know the operational strategies of Boko Haram, probably intelligence. They're going to fortify an already deadly ISWAP with more, formidable network all over internationally. So now it means we need to redouble our efforts. You get the point I was trying to make. So it's good Shekau is dead, but Shekau is not the only problem. There are many commanders, there are many Shekaus, either in ISWAP or Boko Haram or all other ones. So we need to just continue to pound on these, people. They don't have rules of engagement. All they want to do, they just do it. Pure crime. That's what they commit all the time.
And while, there's need for caution now on this news, even though the evidence or the preliminary evidence right now may just tilt to, yes, indeed, Shekau is dead. But, like Adekunle has said now, one man may be gone. The leader of a particular terrorist faction may be gone. But, yes, there are concerns that there are several other. He may have, the seed now of terrorism might, continue to linger. If you look at, the young suicide terrorists now that we've seen, the young ones, the hostages that have been in captivity for so long now, and, so many other people who may be sympathizers with the body, even though reports say earlier today that there was celebration in the Northeast by residents over the news of the reported death.
There is no doubt that his possible death will affect his immediate plans, his immediate terror plans, the immediate terror plans of his gang. It will also definitely diminish the capacity of his own caucus. And I think it will demoralize his supporters, No doubt about that. And of course, when the victims, they are expected to be excited, thousands of them, either direct, primary, or secondary victims of the terror campaign that has waged since 2010. But on the other hand, it may lead to many consequences. You remember that when Bin Laden was, killed, more vicious groups emerged all over the world. Look at what's going on in Syria, Iraq, So this may actually lead the organization to reorganizing itself, forming a common front. These are the likely consequences, which will be very dangerous for us. Because once they have been able to take, one of their leaders out, it's either the faction continues and they begin to fight each other, or they reconcile. If they happen to reconcile, it means they are coming up with a more formidable organization. It means they are having the funding will now go to just one source. The fund that used to go to 2 or 3 sources before. And then ISWAP is Islamic State of West African Province. So it means the frontiers will be expanded, beyond Nigeria. And that is why I think if ISWAP now dominates Boko Haram in Nigeria, it's not a good story for us. It means we have more work to do. It means it's not an end to the campaign of terror being waged by this group. And it means that even beyond the question of fighting on the field, we must look for economic solutions. We must deal with terrorism from its roots. Corruption, bad governance, mismanagement. spending billions for elections, and at the end after the election, people are impoverished. So we must tackle terrorism at the level of economy, at the level of ideology, and at the level of providing good governance for the people. So it's not just about buying weapons and all that. And I believe we have a long way to go. But if we are determined, and if we are honest, if we are sincere, I believe at the fullness of time, we'll be able to put terrorism, behind us.
Yeah, and because we've seen how terrorism has, seriously impacted on education, on safety, on livelihoods of residents. These are just, a few of the vast range of implications in which the terrorist cycle has, affected things over there in the Northeast. Now with this prominence of ISWAP in that already badly affected region that is now trying to recuperate and be restored, basically, what does this all mean? First, for hostages who are still in Boko Haram's captivity, and, by and large, the development of the region.
Development of what?
BKO, with the prominence of ISWAP now, so what does this mean? First, of course, for the Nigerian army, and now that, as have been said, and obviously there will be need for them to re-strategize, but that's on the one hand. What about the hostages in captivity of the Boko Haram sect, and of course, the need to develop the region that has already been badly affected?
There is no way you can develop the region until you have won the war, because Boko Haram or ISWAP continually attacks communities and they destroy government buildings and all that. The governor of Borno State has rebuilt some communities 2 or 3 times, because they will return, come back, return. For example, look at Dikwa, for example. Dikwa was attacked 3 times, 5 times within 1 month. That's too much for any community to take. Destroyed hospitals, looted government buildings, and all that. So no real development can happen under such a situation. What I wish will happen is for Boko Haram or ISWAP to be defeated comprehensively and cause them to surrender. But the way it is now, they are even getting stronger. Any fighting group that does not see anything wrong in taking on the army, going to army barracks to chase soldiers out of their barracks, to loot their weapons, and then use those weapons to go and decimate Shekau and his people, does not look like a group that is in decline. And that is the fear that I have. I suspect that there is greater funding for ISWAP, which has accounted for the numerous attacks that it has carried out in Nigeria this year. 117 attacks between the 1st of March and 1st of January and the 17th of March. That's huge. There's no terrorist group that has carried out such a good number of attacks in any part of the world within the same period. So they are very active here, and I'm sure for that reason they are getting a lot of funding and even training. I understand that some of their men were taken abroad for training as doctors, nurses, IT specialists, bomb specialists, and even mechanics and organizers. So it shows that they have a level of competence in some areas. So we have to be very serious. We have to change our tactics, get the right tactics, the more effective tactics to defeat the clear and present danger that ISWAP represents. And the more is able to attack our communities and get away with it, the more is able to attack military installations and get away with it, the more they will feel emboldened to carry out more attacks. And they actually have, from the look of things, they have big plans for Sambisa. I won't be surprised if Bako Kolgore, who led the onslaught against Shekau, is installed as the Wali of Sambisa Forest, because they have that level of organization, even as a terrorist group. So we have to be extra determined, provide all that the army needs, and the army has to be well motivated to finish this war once and for all. Maybe this is the opportunity that we have. I wish there could be more infighting between the two groups so that we can achieve the aim of putting an end to the nonsense that ISWAP and Boko Haram represent.
Indeed. Well, that is everyone's desire now, that this fighting is indeed fought to the finish, and that region is the better for it. That's at 7 for you on Journalist Hangout this week. I must thank all our contributors on the program today. In the studio, Wale Aduyi and Adekunle Yusuf, and last but certainly not the least, Babajide Kolade Otitoju, who joined in live from Abuja, thanks to interconnectivity. It's good to have you all. Don't also forget to join us on Sunday for the Sunday edition of the program. Plus, we're on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Many thanks for watching. I am Kemi Foladeyemo. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.